I'm going to explain a little bit more about how to take a picture like this that focuses on one part of the subject and leave the other parts of the subject blurred out. And so in this example, the focus point is this area and everything else is blurred out. With this photo, the focus is on this end and the other end is out of focus. To do that, you use the concept and technique of depth of field. Depth of field is the range of focus. Your camera can focus on a certain range or certain depth. In the above example, the camera can focus on this range, this deep. In the below example, the camera can focus on this range, this deep. The difference is, in the above example, the camera is focusing on the subject that's really close to the camera. When the camera is focusing on a subject that's really close to the camera, just like in this example, the depth of field gets shallow. On the other hand, when the camera is focusing on a subject that's at a distance, depth of field becomes deep. Let's look at the above example again. The camera is focusing on this subject. Naturally, depth of field gets this shallow. Now you move the subject farther over here and you take the picture again. So you focus on the subject. When you do that, the depth of field naturally gets deeper. That's how focus works with the camera as well as the human eyes. There's another technique you can use to change how deep the depth of field can be. Aperture. So in both these examples, subjects are placed at the same distance to the camera. Above example, we're using the smaller aperture number f2.8, and the below example, we're using the higher number for the aperture f5.6. So as you can see from the examples, if you use a smaller aperture number, depth of field or focus range is going to be shallow, and if you use a higher number for the aperture, the depth of field is going to be deeper. If your camera lets you go down to 1.0 or 1.8, 1.5, that will make the depth of field or focus range really shallow. And that'll make it really easier for you to focus on one part of a subject, but not focusing on the other parts of the subject. But if your camera doesn't let you use a lower number for the aperture, it'll be very difficult to create a shallow, very shallow depth of field or focus range with the aperture control. So what you would have to do instead is you have to use this concept and technique. As you can see, to do that, you have to be pretty close to the subject. If you are far away from the subject, there's no way you can just focus on one part of a subject and not the other parts, because everything will be in focus. In these examples, the aperture I used was 2.8. Even with 2.8, I went really close to the subject. I was probably 5 or 6 inches away from the subject when I took this photo and this photo. So by combining these two techniques, you can most likely accomplish the pictures like these. Let me know if you have more questions.